This is the morning program with Liam Bartlett.
Yes, good morning, Perth. Nice to have your company this morning on this Thursday. Spare a thought for those people who arrived from Victoria yesterday on the aeroplanes. Not the Geelong Football Club. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about everyday Australians who came from Victoria thinking everything was okay, and mid-air things changed again, as they've done time and time again during this pandemic. And very tough for many of those people, forced into 14 days of self-isolation despite being nowhere near hotspots. But I note with interest that Victoria has recorded no new local cases today. That's pretty interesting. New South Wales, meantime, has recorded 65 new COVID cases. That's their new daily tally today, which is, I know this sounds a bit bizarre, but that's good news for New South Wales. That total slowly but surely coming down, decreasing as the week goes on. So I would imagine they'd take some heart from that. We will catch up a little bit later in the program this morning, probably just after 11 o'clock, with the Federal Health Minister, Greg Hunt, and talk about COVID issues and the way the vaccination rollout is going. If you have any questions for the Federal Health Minister, burning questions that you've been thinking for some time, I really want to know the answer to that, by all means, send them to us, put them in writing and pop them either on a text or on an email. And I'll do my best to ask him those particular points. 0487 999 882 is the text line, 0487 999 882, or if you'd like to send it by email, mornings@6pr.com.au, mornings@6pr.com.au. And thank you to Gareth Parker for another sensational breakfast program here on 6PR. 9 minutes past 9. First up, though, today, questions around the role of the public trustee and whether this state needs an independent regulator, or at the very least, an independent investigation into the way the office of the public trustee is being run in Western Australia. Now, it's a well-known, badly kept secret, I think, among those who are closely involved with the public trustee, that the trustee office is extremely busy with limited resources, staff numbers that are stretched. Now, I know you can make that argument for a lot of offices, especially legal offices attached to the government around Perth, but nevertheless, that said, there appears to be little excuse for the actions that have affected one Perth family, to the point where they claim an abuse of power by the trustee may have cost them as much as $120,000. Now, the problem started when the Prodovnik family lost their remaining parent in July last year. The Prodovnik children, all 5 of them, now adults, were equal beneficiaries in a will that their parents had entrusted to the public trustee office as executor. The 5 siblings were left predominantly 2 semi-rural properties in the Swan Valley, both just over 4 hectares in size, one with a 5-bedroom, 2-storey house on it, the other with just an old shack. Now, both places were valued and everything made sense until the first offer came in, and that's when the trouble began. Joining us this morning is Rochelle Prodovnik. Rochelle, good morning.
Oh, hi, Liam. Thanks so much for talking to me today and letting us tell our horrible story.
No, it's a pleasure. I know your sister Marion has one voice on this, and I'll get to her in just a moment. But I'd like to talk to you, Rochelle. The first offer for the land with the 2-storey house was something like $150,000 below the asking price.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, Liam. If you actually put the 2 properties together, it was almost $200,000 below the asking price, and that was offered to us just 2 weeks into a listing that was getting offers every week. Yes,
because the market is very healthy. So I take it you said no.
Yeah, we absolutely said no, and that was a unified family position.
Right, and what did the Public Trustee's Office say to you about that?
Well, they seemed to be working with us at that stage, but we really couldn't sort of understand why we were being pressed by the Public Trustee's Office to even accept an offer that was so low. You know, I mean, we just thought, why wouldn't we just keep this on the market until we got the asking price?
They wanted you to say yes.
Yeah, they were pressing us to accept this offer. And again, we were unanimous in our rejection of that offer. We stood firm together as a family, and we were really pushing to keep the properties on the market for long enough to get the agreed price. And that's what we wanted.
The best deal, clearly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this was our inheritance. And again, we were not in a hurry to sell. Yeah,
right. So all five of you were totally agreed.
Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, and again, I just want to say this, Len, that we all agreed on the price, yet as soon as the both properties were listed, you know, the Public Trustee's Office consistently tried to whittle us down to a much lower price, and we just couldn't understand why they weren't trying to get us the best price.
Well, you'd be scratching your head thinking, hang on a minute, how come you want to talk this down and not the other way?
Absolutely.
So let me ask you this. Did the Public Trustee appoint a real estate agent for you and your siblings, or did you do that yourself?
So, again, we had the opportunity of putting the title in everyone's name, but we decided to go with the Public Trustee's Office because we were given the assurances that we would be working with them, we could work with them to choose a real estate agent, we would all agree on the price, we'd be involved in these discussions, would be involved in the process. So we went along with the Public Trustee's lead on this.
Well, as you would, because you're the beneficiaries, and clearly your mum and dad wanted you all to share as much as you possibly could.
Absolutely.
So in the end, did you and your brothers and sisters tick off on the real estate agent?
We absolutely did. We were asked and we agreed, and we all agreed on the price, and it seemed to be working together in a unified position.
So you communicated with the agent about what price you were trying to achieve?
Yeah, we actually, red flags started to wave for me, and I did text the real estate agent just to make sure that she was being told exactly what our instructions were, because the fact that the Public Trustee's Office seemed to be trying to whittle us down, and there was, one particular buyer that seemed to be waiting in the wings, you know, we were getting a little bit concerned. So I texted the real estate office agent and just reiterated our instructions, and she came back with a text saying, apologising profusely, saying that the Public Trustee's Office had told her that she was not to speak to the beneficiaries.
What?
Yeah, which is so bizarre. I mean, prior to that, I'd been dealing with her, we'd been speaking on the phone, I'd been texting, helping her with the tenants and helping her take photos, and it was just really bizarre. Like we were shut out at that stage.
You got two properties on the market, and why would there be a need for confidentiality? I beg your pardon, between the public trustee and the real estate agent. I mean, surely you should all be involved.
Well, it was getting progressively more bizarre. Like we were just kept in the dark. Like we didn't know how much level of interest was being expressed in both properties. We didn't know how many people had viewed the properties. You know, it was bizarre.
Were you given feedback about the home opens or the level of interest in the properties?
You know, I actually had to text the tenants to find out who was coming and when they were coming and how many people were coming, how many groups were coming. So you know, thankfully the tenants were keeping us in the loop.
That's bizarre. How could you possibly make informed decisions, the five of you, about which offer to take then?
Well, it was just really bizarre. Again, we were getting just a bit confused by the fact that we were consistently pressured into accepting an offer that was initially $200,000 below the asking price. It then dropped to $120,000 below the asking price. And again, we were unanimous in our rejection of that offer and clear in our instructions to go back and negotiate with a different buyer.
Okay, yeah, all right, chuck that buyer out and get another one. That's basically what you were saying.
Absolutely.
So what happened?
So then, 18 days ago, we were told that the Public Trustee's Office had accepted the offer that was $120,000 less than the agreed asking price, and the Public Trustee's Office has been ignoring our emails and our phone calls and our questions ever since.
Hang on, let me just get this quite clear. So despite your protestations, you and your four siblings, the Public Trustee went ahead and accepted the offer despite the fact that you had explicitly said no.
Yeah, that's right. And I've just got to say this, that it's fraudulent to mislead beneficiaries into believing that their feedback and their input was being considered when in the same week we unanimously and repeatedly directed the Public Trustee's Office to reject an offer they were negotiating to accept it behind our backs at $120,000 below the asking price. Our inheritance was treated like a fire sale. And we are now literally asking the Public Trustee's Office to please explain what is their relationship to this anonymous buyer.
That's an interesting question. What's the difference in the sale price between the two properties? Because we know they're the same size.
Well, sorry, what was the question?
What's the difference, Rochelle, in the sale price of the two properties?
Yeah. So basically what they did is they sold one property. And then they sold. We had a house. I think there's $40,000 between the shack and the 5-bedroom 2-story house. That's the difference in the sale price.
Okay, that's my question. So there's So there's $40,000 difference.
Yeah.
When one has a 5-bedroom 2-story house on it and the other does not.
That's right. That's exactly right.
I'm not a real estate agent, but that doesn't make sense to me.
No.
So I'm just still struggling. How can they accept an offer without your approval, despite you saying no?
Well, it's just, again, I've just got to keep saying this, like we were completely blindsided. We were kept in the dark. Our estate manager stopped taking phone calls weeks before the offer was accepted, and now nobody in the Public Trustee's Office is taking our calls or answering our questions. And our urgent appeals, demanding that the offer be withdrawn immediately, has not been responded to 18 days on.
Can you reverse the decision? Is it possible legally to reverse the decision?
Well, we actually don't know. So because we've been kept completely in the dark, like we don't know at what stage this sale is at. The offer was accepted about 3 weeks ago, but have their finances fallen through, or, we don't know if it's been settled, and we don't know what's happening.
Yeah, it's very, very strange action. Rochelle, thanks for trying to explain that for us. We'll go to your sister, Marion. Marion, good morning.
Hello. Hi, Liam.
Marion, you're on the same page. I mean, all your brothers and sisters must be very angry about this.
Oh, we're absolutely devastated. Like, we just cannot believe this is happening to us. Like, yeah, it's very, very upsetting. Just listening to my sister relay it, it actually makes me very upset because this is my parents' legacy to all of us.
Yes.
And we've just been completely ripped off. It's astounding. This actually happens in Australia. I don't understand it.
And again, this question, I mean, is it a bit late for your family? Can you do anything about it? What course of action could you take, possibly?
Well, my husband's a fantastic lawyer, and very early on he started looking into this for us. And very quickly he realised the public trustee is not regulated. So every time we make a complaint, but basically what it whittles down to is, if you don't like us, take us to the Supreme Court. We're not Clive Palmer. We don't have that sort of money. So we're asking, how can this happen to us? Who can help us? That's why we've reached out to you, Liam, because, if it can happen to us, I'm sure it's going to happen to people listening to this radio station, or it's probably happened to people listening to the radio station. Yeah,
this is where it's all horribly wrong. So if you want to lodge a complaint about the way the public trustee has treated you, it appears you have to complain to the public trustee.
Exactly. And when you do complain to the public trustee about the public trustee, they say, if you don't like it, take us to the Supreme Court and have us removed. Wow. And I just have to add, the legal costs to have them removed will come out of the beneficiary's estate.
Of the estate,
so
yes.
You have to pay for their lawyers to remove them.
You have
doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. Well, you can't spend a small fortune going to the Supreme Court. That just doesn't make sense for anybody, any normal income earner anyway. I can imagine, I know why your family would be hitting their head up against a brick wall on this. I mean, I just can't understand why now the public trustees appears to have shut up shop. They've put the walls up, haven't they?
Absolutely. We've tried to contact them. Every single beneficiary has written to them saying, what's happened? Please explain. And absolutely, they're emailing me about $600 bills saying, please, can you account for this $600 or this $50 here, $50 there? And I was like, are you kidding me? Can you please explain how you've ripped us off $120,000. Like, I think that's a bit more pressing. Like, you know what I mean? They're absolutely avoiding it, not mentioning it whatsoever. Bizarre.
It is bizarre. Marion, look, keep us across this. We'll stay across the story for you. Thank you very much for having a chat to us today. I appreciate your time. Keep us across this. We'll stay across the story for you. Thank you very much for having a chat to us today. I appreciate your time and your courage to come forward. But that's Marianne Prodovnik, one of the Prodovnik family who find themselves in this bizarre situation. It is a bit of a revolving door of privacy on this sort of issue. We have asked the public trustee to come on the program, tell us, the people who are running the public trustee's office. But of course they invoke the privacy provisions, even though the Prodovnik family, as you've just heard last 15 minutes, quite happy to come on and give exactly what their position is and what their opinion is. But let's just quickly, 22 minutes past 9, let's go to the morning program's media lawyer, John Hammond. John, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Liam.
I know you'll join me in the studio after 10 this morning, John, but what do you think of this on the surface? It would appear this family have limited options to get to the bottom of what happened, doesn't it?
Well, they do have options, and I mean, my first approach, if I was that family, would be to set out the case to the public trustee and ask to meet with a senior officer there. And in my experience, they will be listened to. So it's a very serious matter, what they're putting up. And at the end of the day, it's all going to turn on whether that property was sold at an undervalue and whether that was done recklessly. So that needs to be established before anything can be proceeded with. But the complaint needs to be set out in minute detail to the public trustee, and then the public trustee will respond. But
who would establish whether or not it was a reckless act? Would that be left to the public trustee, in which case that would be a complete conflict, would it not?
No. Again, if I was on the side of the fence, on the family side of the fence, I'd be telling them to go and get a sworn valuation of that property as at the date of sale.
As at the date of sale. That's interesting, because they already have sworn valuations.
So, for example, if they're saying the public trustee sold the property for $400,000 and it was worth $600,000, just by way of example, then that needs to be placed in writing in a sworn valuation and put up to the public trustee.
See, the rest of their complaint, John, has been set out in chapter and verse and already given to the public trustee. They've had no luck. Yeah. The public trustees shut up shop. That's why they've come to us.
Well, given what's happened on radio this morning, I think the public trustee will listen, and they need to. I think it's time for them to engage a lawyer if they haven't done that. I heard one of the members of the family that you interviewed said that her husband was a lawyer, so I'm sure that they can put up a submission to the public trustee where they can, put that case.
Yeah. Well, we'll follow it up this end with the public trustee's office and make sure that case is heard one way or the other.
Liam, the other comment I'd make is that under the public trustee's legislation, it is liable for acts that it takes which, harm another person. There is a specific provision under their legislation which entitles people to take action.
There is a provision. Okay, that's interesting.
Yes. Well, look, but your caller is right. It's an action in the Supreme Court.
Yes, which no one can afford, as you know. Well, we'll talk about this in a little bit more depth, and maybe we can take some calls about the public trustee generally if you have time, but we'll see you in the studio just after 10 this morning, John, as it's your weekly segment. Thanks very much for joining us this morning.
Bye.
I hope that helps the Prodovnik family, but as I say, we will follow that this end, make sure that a detailed, as John puts it, a detailed and summarised complaint is definitely heard. But there is no independent regulator for the trustee, and it's my understanding there's really no independent regulator for public trustees' office anywhere in the country, in any other state or jurisdiction. I might be wrong on that. I'm willing to be corrected if you know. Give us a ring, 133 882, but that's my understanding. 26 past 9. We'll take your calls in just a moment. We'll come back in a moment on the morning program. 29 minutes past 9. We've spoken about the inconsistencies and the unfairness of some of the COVID rules and restrictions on this program from time to time. Goodness knows it does sound like a broken record sometimes, but there's been so many of them in so many different jurisdictions, not just here in Western Australia, but all over the shop. But I've got to say yesterday's starts to take the cake. Now, I'm not sure it's the worst, but perhaps it's just a product of how long these things have been dragging on. And don't get me wrong, I'm actually quite looking forward, being a Dockers supporter, I'm very much looking forward to the game tonight at Optus Stadium between Geelong and Fremantle. But do I think really it should be taking place? Not really. No, I don't. Not if we're consistent. And by that, I mean I was staggered yesterday when Geelong, the football team, landed in Perth yesterday afternoon after the WA government reclassified Victoria from very low risk to low risk, from very low risk to low risk, meaning that arrivals from Victoria yesterday from early afternoon were required to immediately get tested and self-isolate for 14 days. Now, there were quite a few planes that arrived with people who had been mid-air unknowingly, obviously caught again, as people have been caught before, were given the bad news when the plane was on the tarmac pulling up to the arrivals gate at Perth Airport yesterday, and all pretty devastated, annoyed, disturbed, you name it, chuck in whichever adjective you like. But for the members of the Geelong footy team, it was a totally different story. They were in exactly the same position, and yet they were all granted an exemption. Why? Are we all in this together? Clearly not. Clearly not. Money talks, and the world of commerce goes round, and AFL football has to go on. In fact, I think it's even worse than that, because Geelong were at the MCG playing Carlton on the weekend. And the MCG, of course, is a newly announced COVID-19 exposure site. Many other hundreds of people that came from Victoria were nowhere near exposure sites. And yet they're penalised. Geelong's not. Joining us this morning is the president of the AMA here in WA, Dr. Mark Duncan-Smith. Doctor, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Liam. Good morning, all the listeners.
Doctor, what do you think about this? I think many of our listeners would understand why the government put these rules into position, but do you think the rules should apply to everybody?
Look, of course they should, and there should be consistency, and the reaction should be fair and reasonable. Now, I don't think it is reasonable to make changes mid-air. I think people leaving Melbourne, for example, should have the opportunity to not board the plane if they know they're going to 2 weeks quarantine. And if there is such time urgency to justify it, well, what about the planes that arrived an hour before or an hour and a half before? Are they subject to this as well? And also the fact that the Geelong Football Club are now going to be playing Fremantle. Now, I would have thought that would mean that every Fremantle player, when the game is over, is now a close contact of someone from Melbourne. So they'll have to go into quarantine for 14 days and be swabbed as well, if they're going to be consistent.
If they're going to be consistent. And that's the point, isn't it?
Absolutely. And see, the problem is that consistency leads to people doing the right thing. It's when you get inconsistent, people go, well, hang on a minute, what's going on here? Why should I do this? This isn't consistent.
Well, I'll just hark back to the official press release from the government that says the adjustment yesterday to the controlled border was based on, and I quote, expert health advice. Now, Doctor, you've been around medical circles for a long time. Can you tell me the last time you heard of any health advice that treated two groups of people that had exactly the same background and conditions and symptoms, for that matter, in two totally different ways?
No, I agree with you entirely. That really wouldn't be the situation. I think every time we hear a politician say, I've taken the best medical advice, we should just add to that, I've taken the best medical advice that suits me at the time.
Yes, exactly. Well, I'd love to see the medical advice, because I don't know of any medical physician, be it Andy Robertson or anyone else, who would actually put pen to paper and say it's okay to play football, but if you've got any other profession, you could be COVID positive.
Well, exactly. And this is where we would like to see more transparency about this decision-making process. We've also corresponded with the government requesting that there'd be proper advertising of the levels of lockdown, for example. Apparently there's 3 levels of lockdown that no one really knows formally about. And our psychiatric members of our council have identified that there is harm to the community by not knowing what's going on and not having any sort of predictability. And so So we would like to see the 3 levels to be advertised so that people know that if we're in level 2 and things are looking bad, that we're going to go to level 3 and people know what that means. And then they can prepare. Businesses can do what they've got to do to mitigate their losses. And that creates a sort of a bit of certainty in uncertainty. And I think that would be better for the community.
I totally agree. I mean, anything that helps us to be more open and accountable, I'm up for. What did you say? 3 levels of lockdown? There
are 3 levels of lockdown, level 1, level 2 and level 3.
Is that right?
No one really knows about it.
Keep talking, Doctor. You're telling me something I didn't know.
Well, we started a conversation about this, and that's how we found out there are actually 3 levels. And so we've actually written to the government requesting that they advertise these widely so that people can understand what we're heading into. It just allows more predictability. It means that, you know, if you're at a certain level of lockdown, that you know if things are getting better, that you're going to go back to level 1, for example, and you know what that means. And if you're coming out of level 1, you know what that means as well. It just would allow a little bit more predictability for society.
Couldn't agree more. Good luck with getting the advice. Let us know when you've got hold of it.
Will do, Liam.
Dr. Mark Duncan-Smith, the President of the AMA here in Western Australia. There's no doubt there are 2 levels of lockdown currently, one for the Geelong football team and one for the rest of the population. 25 minutes to 10 on the morning program, 133 882. Love to hear from you this morning. 21 minutes to 10. Let's go to the phones this morning. Hello, Sam.
How are you, mate?
Good. Thanks for waiting.
Yeah, no worries. I went to one of their seminars, this mob you're talking about.
The public trustee?
Public trustee.
Yep.
And when I weighed it up, mate, this is the conclusion. Why would you want to pay an administrator to your estate when all they're doing is reading out your wishes?
Yes.
Do you understand? I mean, they're saying that Sam's going to leave this to that.
I guess they administrate it, don't they?
To do what they did to these people. And not only do you pay them as their administrator, they take a percentage of your whole estate. Did you know that?
Yes. Well, that's their payment, isn't it? That's the payment that they take for administrating, I beg your pardon, the whole will.
It's costing me $1,000, right? Now my sons are the administrators, and they're only going to take what I've asked them, what I've left them.
Yeah, that's right.
Why do you need someone to sell properties? That's up to the beneficiaries, isn't it?
Well, they take a percentage for making sure everything's done properly and all the paperwork's in place and all the legalities are finished and finalised. But if they're doing it like this, Sam, you've got to ask the question: why would you use them?
Mate, I don't believe that's fair.
Okay, no, fair enough. Many people in your shoes. There's some text messages this morning. Susan says, Liam, the public trustees took 7 years to settle my friend's parents' estate, charged tens of thousands in exorbitant fees for an appalling service. Thanks, Susan. Ian says, this sounds like insider trading with the public trustee. How many others have been stitched up like this? I'll bet the AG will take leave today. Thanks, Ian. Or he'll join the others on leave. I think there's quite a few people, senior people on leave, isn't there? The Premier, the Health Minister, a few others. Bruce says, sounds like there is a death adder in the woodpile at the Public Trustee's office. And Bob says, Liam, I'm also a person who had a mammoth dispute with my father's will with the Public Trustee. There has been a few disputes, Bob, but as we pointed out today, it's very hard. If you dispute what they're doing, it's very hard to get an independent voice on that because there is no particular regulator. Brendan, good morning.
Good morning, Liam. How are you on this stormy day?
Yeah, it's a ripper, isn't it? Not bad, Brendan.
I just wanted to raise another point you made about one rule for Geelong, one rule for the rest of the public. We've got Guns N' Roses and Kiss doing a nationwide world tour in November and December this year.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put the wood in the work there. Where's social distancing for them and all the fans in the mosh pit? They're coming over from overseas, but they're still publicising their tours online.
Well, if we're still open for business, Brendan, then good-o. I mean, personally, I hope we are. I'm looking forward to seeing Kiss. I think it's their farewell tour of all time, isn't it? I'd like to go to that myself, earplugs notwithstanding. Thanks for calling this morning. Hello, Jeff.
Yeah, good morning, Liam. Yeah, just following up, the whole Geelong, and also the availability of venues under the state government charter for rules for the concert hall and Albany Entertainment Centre. It just doesn't sit well, and I don't know how an organisation that's not illegal can be refused the use of those venues. You're talking about the policy that the Perth Theatre Trust has that we were discussing yesterday. Yeah. I mean, and I'm dismayed that that this is Perth, Western Australia. Yeah, it doesn't sound like Perth, Western Australia to me. Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Jeff. I couldn't agree more. In fact, thanks for raising that, because it's been taken one step further today. They're talking about the fact that the policy, and yesterday, many of our listeners will recall, yesterday we were talking about the ban, that this policy, which has been used to ban the Australian Christian lobby from renting venues in WA, the concert hall and also the entertainment centre down at Albany. It prohibits bookings from groups identifying with countries whose political status is unclear or in dispute, or that the West Australian government doesn't agree with. Now, it's been taken to another level today, because it's become clearer that also performers from regions annexed by China have been barred under the same policy. We did mention this just slightly yesterday, but an event, or any event, which is linked to the likes of Taiwan or Tibet would be prohibited under this policy from hiring those major performance venues. And I mean, we did, as I say, we did discuss this yesterday, but it's been taken to a new measure, and it's very interesting to see the way the rest of the country, and I'm not just talking about the chats that we have or the way we look at this in WA vis-a-vis the WA government, and any sort of political bias that you may or may not have. But I think it's fascinating when you look at how the rest of the country, how other people view this particular issue. Now, there's an editorial in the Australian newspaper today that obviously is published nationally. And the headline is "Christian Ban Smacks of Hubris." Let me read a little bit to you. It says, "The McGowan government in Western Australia has pushed the boundaries of cancel culture to a new and worrying level by banning a Christian organisation from hiring public facilities because its views do not align with those of WA Labor. The policy is used to stop the Australian Christian lobby from booking Perth Concert Hall, and the Albany Entertainment Centre may well contravene anti-discrimination laws. But it is, above all, an insidious form of censorship that would be more at home in a totalitarian state. Under new guidelines introduced by the McGowan government, venues administered by the Perth Theatre Trust will not accept bookings by individuals or organisations where the content of the event does not represent the views of the WA government or the vast majority of West Australians." So the Christian lobby was deemed too political. But then we go to banning people on the basis of their political beliefs. And as I say, any event that is emanating from a region that has been annexed by China is also off limits. Now, our stablemate over in Sydney, Ben Fordham, who hosts the breakfast program on 2GB, has well and truly hit out at this morning. And I'll play you a little bit of what Ben had to say, because this is what he's telling Sydney audiences about the way they should feel about Western Australia. He has gone one step further and called Mark McGowan a Chinese lapdog, or China's lapdog. This is what Ben said. Have a listen to a part of this.
Now, I know the West Australian Premier takes the wet lettuce approach to China. He's lectured the Prime Minister many times for taking a tough stance towards Beijing. But his latest stunt comes straight from the Communist Party playbook. And it's not just the Christians that have been banned. Performance groups who support Taiwan or Tibet, they've been knocked back too. The policy prohibits bookings from organisations identifying with countries whose political status is unclear or in dispute. So if you support Taiwan or Tibet, you're not welcome. Last year, the Perth Theatre Trust apologised to the Chinese government after it allowed the Taiwanese acrobatic troupe to perform at the State Theatre. Oh, no, you can't have that. The Taiwanese acrobats. They're going to upset someone in Beijing. So let's go and grovel to China and apologise. Let's call it for what it is. Mark McGowan is a lapdog to China. He doesn't believe in freedom of religion or freedom of speech. The Christian lobby should be taking him to court. And they should point to West Australian law. There's a section in the Equal Opportunity Act which makes it unlawful to block access to facilities on the grounds of someone's religious or political beliefs. So it's there in black and white. And maybe Mark McGowan should read it. The Christians are banned. The Taiwanese are banned. The Tibetans are banned. What's going on here? Maybe the venues are all booked out by the Shanghai Symphony Orchestra.
Well, there you go. That's what Sydney audiences are hearing this morning on 2GB on the 9 Radio network. That's how Mark McGowan is being described to many people in Sydney as China's lapdog. What do you think of that? 133 882 is our talkback number. Our lines are open. We'll come back in just a moment.
The morning program with Liam Bartlett on 882 6PR.
8 minutes to 10, almost 14 degrees in the city at the moment. Hello, Jacob. How are you?
Yeah, g'day, Liam. Unfortunately, there'll be a lot of WA sycophants of Mark McGowan that are going to rebut the comments from the New South Wales broadcaster. But the reality is that, yes, our Premier is a lapdog of the Chinese government. And the sooner the WA public recognises that, the sooner we'll be better off. Because right now, China is expanding. It's going to take over most of Asia, and we are going to be the victims of all of this if we just curtail to all their needs and their wishes.
You think he's right? Here's a lapdog. All right, Jacob, thank you for that. Hello, Michael.
I campaigned for the independence of East Timor for about 23 years. Anyone who wants to campaign for the independence of Tibet or to preserve the sovereignty of Hong Kong or to defend Taiwan against invasion, of course they should be able to. And it is outrageous that the Premier of Western Australia thinks that he can decide what is in the interests of the vast majority of West Australians, to use his terms. The man is a disgrace. And I'm so proud to hear what you've said today and what your colleague Ben Fordham has said. Well done.
But, Michael, you know, if we are supportive of democracy and we're supportive of people, and you've just hit the nail on the head there, of people in Hong Kong who are being sent to jail as we speak for literally just for speaking up and speaking out and supporting democratic rights and freedoms. If we don't want to see the likes of Taiwan and Tibet succeed, then what does it say about us?
Look, you are so right. And if anyone wants to campaign against organ harvesting and mass murder in communist China, which is happening every day, is McGowan going to ban that? What is he going to do next? What are we not going to be allowed to say? What are we not going to be allowed to think? Having a major majority in Parliament does not give you a right to trample on the human rights of anybody.
All right, Michael, thank you. Hello, Jeff.
Hi, Liam. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Yeah, I agree of freedom of speech and equality and all that, but I do agree with Mark McGowan because the Australian government has created the devil, the export devil and the import devil with China, and upsetting them. We are suffering. There's a lot of people out there. They're not over the Rio Tintos or the forestry. I'll give you an example. We export timber to China. Old recycled timber. That's stopped now. We were sending 3 containers a month. There's a company down south that's got nearly $2 million worth of logs that was exporting to China. That stopped. Now,
yeah, but we can trade with people. We can trade with whoever we want, Jeff. It doesn't necessarily mean that we have to kowtow to them and not take event bookings from people that don't share their particular political ideology. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I do agree with that. But you try to read an email from the exporters over there saying that we don't want your material. Why? They don't give you a reason.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Well, I take your point. They have a lot of commercial power. There's no doubt about that. But, you know, do we let that determine our lives and our lifestyle and our own values? That's the question, isn't it?
No, but the government, like I said, have created the devil. We don't have manufacturing in Australia anymore. We don't have Holden. We don't have Ford. We do no manufacturing in Australia. We've got people that have been invested in machinery and that are sitting idle, that you can't even sell because they can't export to these countries. We can't export to other countries.
Totally. I agree with you on that point as well. And that's why we are supposed to have political leaders who have a little bit of nous. 4 minutes to 10 on the morning program.
Law Talk with John Hammond.
And it's that time of the week again. We welcome the Director of Hammond Legal, John Hammond, the morning program's very own media lawyer. How are you, John?
Yeah, good, thanks, Liam.
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. Thursday already.
I said media... I said media lawyer. I said lawyer to the stars earlier on. I probably downplayed that because you've been around a while. And I know there's a lot of so-called stars that you've knocked back over the years on a legal basis, because you don't just take anybody on, do you?
Oh, definitely not, Liam. I'm very selective.
Everyone's got their pride.
Just like I'll only be on one radio show, and that's 6PR.
That's what we want to hear. Well done. That's the answer. That's the answer I was looking for. Hey, look, on a serious note, our talkback lines are open, 133 882 if you'd like to have a legal question to John this morning. We talked earlier on about this public trustee story affecting, in this case, the Prodovnik family. Look, I think it's a fascinating story, and it seems on the surface of it they've been treated very badly. We'll keep following it from this end. But, look, it's no secret, is it, that this office is understaffed, overworked. Could that explain some of the issues?
The public trustee has an enormous workload. There's no question about that. That's well known around the town and amongst lawyers.
It's an open secret. It's a bit like the coroner's office at the moment. I mean, they just haven't got enough people.
The workload they have is intense because they've got hundreds, if not thousands, of people ringing them every day to find out about the progress of their estate, coming in to make wills, which are often quite complicated, dealing with people with disabilities and the like. It's an intense workload. But having said that, the issue that's been raised this morning, I'm confident has an easy answer. And the answer is this. What was the valuation that the public trustee got for that property? That's what I can't pronounce the name of the... Prodovniks.
Yeah.
They need to show to the public trustee that their valuation, as at the date of sale, was A, and it's significantly more than the other valuation, and the valuation of the public trustee is wrong. Now, if they can demonstrate that, I think the public trustee will listen. But if they can't, there isn't a case. But it all comes down to the value of that property.
But the valuations they got of that property, you're talking about at the day of sale, but the valuations they got are only literally, 4 or 5 weeks old. So that's how they've come to the point where they can say publicly, hand on heart, these properties have been sold for $120,000 less than their market value.
Okay, and I understand that, but if being the lawyer, I'm going to be the guy that's cynical and paint the blackest possible picture, that you've got to satisfy me that valuation or the price at which it was sold was under market. And the only way that can be established is by getting a professional real estate agent in to say that.
Okay.
And then I'll say, maybe they're wrong. But until I see that as a lawyer, I wouldn't be going anywhere with it.
But the public trustee surely can't just reject their entreaties, their emails and their requests to explain what had happened. Surely they have to engage.
No, they do have to engage, and I'm very confident that they will engage.
Okay, good.
I remain extremely confident of that.
I'd like to share your confidence. I'd like to share your confidence. All right, let's quickly take some calls. There's another story that's just breaking out of the full Court of Appeal, isn't it? Here in WA, there's a story that's just breaking out of that I'm fascinated in. But let's just quickly take some calls. Some of our listeners have been waiting to talk to you. Hello, Helen.
Oh, good morning, Liam and John. As the executor of the state, I'm the executor, there's 2 sets of beneficiaries, the children and the grandchildren. Now, with the grandchildren, there's 5 of them, so any monies in bank went to the 5 grandchildren. 2 of them want their money now, and the tax implications have not been finalised. Where do you stand? Because they've gone to a lawyer. Only 2 of the beneficiaries of the money.
If I was the executor, I'd be taking a specialist accounting advice on that issue to say what is the tax liability for the estate, and then that accountant will tell you how much you can withhold for tax, and you're entitled as the executor to withhold money for tax.
Yes.
No question
and
about
all
that.
Costs, yeah. Yeah.
And your costs, your accounting fees as well are to be paid by the estate to answer that question.
But 3 of the beneficiaries aren't, asking for this. They just want it all at the end. Any legal costs that I may incur, can I just charge those 2 beneficiaries?
No, I wouldn't do that. I'd charge it to the estate overall. Unless there's some sort of argument that those beneficiaries are being unreasonable. But you're clearly not being unreasonable by getting the accounting advice and, if need be, legal advice. So I would not distribute any money until you've got that accounting advice.
Right. So you're saying to Helen, basically ignore their requests to hurry things up and give them the money.
Yes.
Wait until everything is settled.
Wait until you've got the right accounting advice, Helen, before you do anything.
Let's respond to their lawyer.
Yeah.
Things are because there's capital gains on the unit because one of the children took their time, so it went past that date. So that's why I've got an accountant to do this. Yeah.
You'll just have to tell them to be patient, Helen.
Yeah, well, the accountant will be able to answer that pretty easily. So as soon as you get that, then you can act.
Okay.
Thanks a lot, Helen.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thanks, Helen.
Thanks for calling. Hello, Kevin.
Oh, g'day. Thanks for taking the call, Liam and John. I've got some friends that were moving house today, and would you believe the removalist has let them down, plus the piano specialist removalist has let them down also. First thing, putting a message out to the 6PR community. If anybody knows of anybody that can help, I can leave my number with your producer. Second thing is that given that they have cancelled on the day and left these people in a lurch, is there any possible comeback that, or any action that can be taken for inconvenience and just the added stress that my friends are under?
In terms of inconvenience and stress, the answer is generally no, Kevin. But if extra costs have been incurred as a result of the late cancellation, then the answer is yes.
It's a pretty average performance, isn't it?
Yeah, very average.
Okay, that's great. Can I leave a number with your producer, Liam? And if there's anybody out there, please help. These guys are desperate. They've had a really awful time. They've lost a truckload of money in a business, not through their fault.
Yeah.
And it just seems like they're just getting kicked from pillar to post.
Yeah.
And if anybody can help, please.
Yeah, no worries, Kevin. Just hold the line there for a second, and we'll see if anyone's listening who knows of anybody who runs a removalist company that has some spare capacity right now and can help them. That would be fantastic, or can move a piano, and we know how difficult it is to move those.
Yeah, I used to play one, Liam.
Yeah, well...
But no, I can no longer, mind you.
Really?
No, just...
All those music lessons for nothing.
Yeah, that's right, at the Sisters of St. Joseph in York Street, South Perth.
It would have been some rollicking old tunes.
Yeah, there was.
Not back in your rock and roll days. Gee, that's a bit of a shame. But you've got a piano, haven't you?
Not anymore, Liam.
You sold it?
I sold it, yes.
Oh.
I just don't have the skills anymore, but I do love listening to a good piano player.
It is good, isn't it? It is good. John, we'll take a quick break and come back and take some more calls. 15 minutes past 10 on the morning program.
This is the morning program with Liam Bartlett on 882 6PR.
18 past 10 with John Hammond from Hammond Legal. John, just before we take some more calls, a story that has literally just come hot off the press from the full court, from the Court of Appeal here in WA. This is fascinating because we told our listeners just the other day, as a result of police action, that a 53-year-old man had been sentenced to 7 months in prison for failing to comply with a COVID quarantine direction. Now, this is the case of the fellow who arrived from Brisbane and was told to go and self-quarantine at his home in Scarborough, went there and then during the 14 days had tradespeople coming back and forth conducting work, and then decided to sell a whole stack of stuff online.
Yes.
And one of the people that came to pick up one of the things that were purchased, he obviously confessed that he was quarantining, so they dobbed him in. Anyway, 15 charges of failing to comply, pleaded guilty to all of them, was given 7 months in jail, 2 months to be served immediately, 5 months suspended. Now, he was 53, but you have a story this morning. That's a decision just handed down on a 20-year-old?
That's right. His name was Robert Butterfield. His matter went before Justice Toddle in late April, but the decision was published on the 13th of July, Liam, which I think was earlier this week, and then published on the Supreme Court website this morning. Now, he also received an initial sentence of 7 months, with 2 months to be served immediately and 5 months suspended.
So exactly the same sentence?
Exactly the same, but the difference here is this was a man of 20 years of age who rolled up to the magistrate's court without a lawyer, and the argument on appeal was he didn't fully understand what could happen to him when he was standing there without a lawyer. And one of those things was a potential sentence of imprisonment, which he did receive.
He did receive. So the magistrate gave him exactly the same sentence that this other fellow got.
Yeah.
But what's happened to him at appeal?
Well, it went on appeal, and Justice Toddle overturned the decision, released the man immediately upon hearing the matter. So he served 2 days in prison and replaced it with a community-based order of 60 hours of community work. And what else did he get? That's pretty much it. He was immediately released.
So he reckons he didn't deserve the 7 months jail?
Definitely. The judge said he was 20 years old, he was remorseful, he had a great record, great character, and he pleaded guilty at the first opportunity.
It's phenomenal.
So,
and yet, same sort of thing, failing to comply with quarantine direction.
Yeah, so when the police rolled up to his house in Ardros, he wasn't home. He'd gone in a rideshare car to a mate's place, I think without a mask, and fortunately he didn't test positive for COVID or hadn't tested positive.
Yep.
But the Supreme Court, through Justice Toddle, was of the view that this just warranted not a prison sentence, but a community service order.
That's fascinating. Two people can do virtually the same thing and be treated so differently.
Yeah, I mean, the Supreme Court is arguably adopting a much more lenient view of these COVID breaches and the penalties that should apply.
So does that mean will that have any sort of precedent effect?
Oh, most definitely. When the Supreme Court rules on matters such as this, the magistrate is obliged to follow these rulings. They are bound by these rulings.
Right. So in future, all magistrates will be taking a look at that case.
Most definitely.
And if anyone turns up without a lawyer, they're super foolish, aren't they? Because legal representation will pull that case out now of the back pocket and use it as precedent.
Yeah, so if another 20-year-old finds him or herself in the same situation and they go down with a lawyer, bring out the case of AAN and Butterfield.
Gee, that's very interesting. That's really interesting. 22 minutes past 10. All right, let's go back to the phone. Some more legal questions. John, John's on the line. Hello, John.
Hi, Liam. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for taking my call. Good morning, John.
Far away.
I sent an email through, and apparently you've had a look at that email. It's to do with who enforces company law. I mean, the people who make the laws, there's no one I can find to enforce this law to bring a director into line, to give me some documents that I'm asking for, which is basically the sale of a client list, which has left the company high and dry.
Well, John, I know your email, and with frustration you've referred to the role of the Australian Securities and Investment Commission, usually known as ASIC, and you said you've had no satisfaction from them. You've also been to legal advisors and you've had no satisfaction from them because it just costs simply way too much to use the Supreme Court as an option. If you can't get satisfaction from the regulator and you can't get a satisfaction through lawyers, I'm sorry, but there's nowhere else to go in your case. Your only remedy based on what you have told me in your email is to go through the courts and through the legal system. And yeah, look, I get how expensive that is and how frustrating that is if you don't have the resources. Not everybody, as people have said to me in emails today, is a Clive Palmer that doesn't worry about what the cost of litigation is.
Exactly.
And yeah,
John, I've got to say, it's a very, very unfair system in that regard.
It really is. I mean, people are making laws, but they don't enforce it. I don't understand that.
I would go back. The only other thing you may wish to consider is complaining to your local member of parliament about whether parliament sorry about whether your local member can put some pressure on ASIC to investigate your case.
Can raise it, yeah. Maybe they could raise it. I mean, well, you know, if you've got them on board well and truly, maybe they could even raise it as a private matter.
That's right.
In Parliament.
But the other thing I'd say, John, about your matter is, and it's a warning to everyone, investing in these unlisted private companies as a minor shareholder gives you virtually no power, no recourse. It's a dangerous way to invest money.
It's high risk. Sorry about that, John.
I realise the risk, but what I don't understand is that people make laws and yet there's no one there to enforce it. That's what I don't understand. What's the point of having those laws if you need a lawyer to then represent you to fight those laws?
Look, John, I entirely agree with you, and unfortunately there's no easy fix, especially when it comes to a $2 company.
Yeah. Sorry about that, John. Wasn't that the great quote from Sir Thomas More? When the law gets to the stage where you need a third party to interpret it, it's out of control, or something to that effect. I'm just paraphrasing.
Yeah, well, in this case, I mean, ASIC, like a lot of other public agencies, just doesn't have the resources to follow up on every one of these matters, Liam.
John, ASIC are not following up on the matters that they should be following up on now, never mind the other ones.
Yeah, well...
Anyway, that's another story.
It is.
Thanks for calling. Hello, Angela.
Oh, hi, Liam and John. Thanks for taking the call. I just had a question about, I was in a not-at-fault car crash a couple of months ago. My car was written off and the total insured value didn't include how much I needed for my stamp duty. So I'm just wondering whether that extra money that I've had to outlay, if I have any case to take the guy who was at fault to court for it.
The answer generally is yes, Angela, in relation to that. If you have a shortfall as a result of the accident, you can write to that person, ask them to make good. Otherwise, yes, go off to the magistrate's court.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Angela, good thing you were okay if your car was written off.
Very lucky, and I had two small children in the back seat on the Narrows Bridge.
Goodness me.
So we were very lucky. So I'm very, very thankful for that, and now ready to kind of look into the rest of it.
Yeah, good luck, Angela.
Good on you. That's a blessing. And John, Angela can make that claim. We've talked about this before, haven't we? The magistrate's court, you can go in and make that claim yourself.
Yes, you can.
Yeah. So good luck.
It's called a minor case claim if it's under, I think, $10,000, and the forms can be lodged online.
Minor case claim.
Yes.
And you can do it online. Good luck, Angela. That's good. Good information there, Jono. You're on fire today.
I'm getting tested. What's
happening? Have you been to the gym a few times or something?
You've had me on my mettle since fairly early this morning. So all I've done is research diverse areas of law.
Incredible. And the cup of tea and the ginger nut that we gave you as well. We stretched the budget there. Jennifer, good morning.
Hello. I would really like some advice on legal aid. I'm a pensioner. I live on my own. I've been served a misconduct order, which is absolutely trivial, etc., but I have to go to court. Okay. I'm not eligible, apparently, to ask for legal aid because it is a non-violent act. Yet this man hit me with a baseball bat, killed my rabbit. I'm in fear of my dog. Hey, where do I go? What's happening?
Well, Jennifer...
How can I...
what you're saying is right. You do not qualify for legal aid if it's a misconduct restraining order.
He killed your rabbit.
But if you've been hit with a... I don't know whether you said you were hit, but...
No, he hit me with a baseball bat. And would you believe this is over a silly neighbourhood dispute to do with fences and trees. I mean, how pathetic.
Well, they usually are.
Well, Jennifer, I understand you're a pensioner. You're probably going to have to self-represent yourself if you don't want to incur legal fees.
Well, that would be okay, wouldn't it? In this and at that level, no.
Depending on whether Jennifer feels confident enough to speak to the court about the whole incident or not. But yes, if you get a lawyer, you will have to pay for it, unfortunately.
Okay, I'm sorry about that, Jennifer. Good luck with that. Hello, Tony.
Yeah, hi, Liam. Hi, John.
Something took me by surprise the other day. My wife now had a daughter before I married her. We've been married 30 years, and we were just adjusting our wills, and we found out that if my wife dies before me, my stepdaughter has no legal claim on anything of mine, even though I would leave it to her somehow, but legally she can't claim anything because she loses her status as stepdaughter. Does that sound right to you?
Potentially it's right. Under the Family Provision Act, there are circumstances, I believe, where a stepdaughter can claim.
But couldn't
Tony... I need to refresh my memory of that particular section of the Act, but...
Couldn't Tony just fix that by amending his will?
But I understand Tony saying he's going to do something with his will anyway to provide for her. Is that correct, Tony?
Yeah, we can do some sort of a trust thing which takes care of it, but it's just a point that I think there's probably a lot of people probably don't realise that could be the case and it could apply to them. So it may be helpful for other people as well to know.
No, you're right. I mean, there is potential for a claim to be made. That's my recollection of how it goes with a stepdaughter.
That's interesting. Okay. I didn't realise that either. Thanks, Tony. Thanks for the information. Ros, good morning.
Oh, good morning. My only child has gone to America to live. I have no other family. How is she notified if I was to die suddenly?
Unfortunately, there will be no notification, Ros, if there's no communication between the parties.
Oh, that's not very good, Ros. What made you think of that?
Oh, I'm not thinking of dying. I'm just thinking of her. Who's going to let her know?
Well, you're not planning on dying, eh?
No. Oh, not this way.
Got too much to do.
Ros, are there other members of the family that you're in touch with that are also in touch with your daughter?
I don't have any other members of the family, no.
Or friends?
Nobody?
Nobody, no.
Well, you must have friends, though, that would
let your daughter know.
Is there anything you can put in your passport or something where they can contact her?
Well, have you got a will?
No.
You don't have a will, okay.
I have, but it's in my house.
But if you have a will, your will will appoint an executor.
Yep.
Whoever that executor is will no doubt let your daughter know.
Unless the executor is your daughter.
Yes.
It is your daughter?
It is my daughter, yeah.
Right. Okay.
Well, you need to make sure there's a good channel of communication between you and your daughter. I don't know there's email, telephone, whatever, but...
Yes.
That's something that you can, with respect, Ros, easily sort out.
Yes. That's not so much a legal issue as a relationships issue, and I'm not sure if we want to put John up as a relationships expert.
Yeah, my track record's not special.
Okay.
No offence.
Thanks very much for that, John.
Thanks a lot, Ros.
Good to hear from you.
Good on you. Good on you. Sorry, mate, but there was a bit of a demarcation dispute there.
Yeah, there was. I mean,
I want to make that quite clear.
Far be it from me to hold myself out as a relationship expert.
Well, I could feel those calls coming in from Relationships Australia protesting. We'll see you next week.
Okay, great, Liam.
John Hammond from Hammond Legal on the morning program. Back in a sec. 133 882, our talkback number. I'd love to hear from you this morning. Give us a ring and tell us what's on your mind around Perth. 133 882. 23 minutes to 11. Of course, at the moment, Australia's various border closures and lockdowns are causing plenty of disruption, aren't they, to businesses, individuals, a bit of heartache around the place. Tough enough for everyone at the moment, trying to keep afloat. But this morning, around 7,000 truck drivers are gearing up for a tough fight and ready to go head-to-head with one of Australia's largest transport operators in Toll. Sure you've seen the Toll trucks, Toll Holdings, out and about. Negotiations between the Transport Workers Union and Toll have broken down over pay and conditions, and so they're off to the Fair Work Commission. The union's action, of course, means that food and fuel supplies across Australia, or perhaps even here in Western Australia, may be affected. Joining us this morning is Tim Dawson from the West Australian division of the TWU. Tim, good morning.
How you going, Liam?
Thanks for having a chat to us, Tim. What is the sticking point here?
Oh, there's a number of sticking points, Liam, and really what it is the attack on workers' wages and conditions, and the attack on their families. That's the main one, and it's around job security and reliable jobs. And Toll just don't want to come to the party.
So how did it kick off? Is this all about the overtime limits that Toll was planning to put in place? Is that how it started?
No. Look, it's part of our, every 3 to 4 year negotiations with Toll, and Toll employees done the right thing last year by Toll. They forego any increases in their wages and set aside negotiating their agreement during the pandemic, and now we're sitting down with Toll to negotiate a new agreement with them. And what we want is we want to make sure that Toll don't bring in like a B class rate is what they want to do. They want to bring in a rate which will be 20 to 30% below what our existing Toll members are paid, and any new employers would be paid that rate. We're talking about job security and reliable jobs here. They don't want to bring in and discuss it. They've completely rejected any type of ratio of casual employees to permanent employees.
Right.
They've rejected any protection of, our employees around, outsourced work.
So let's cut to the chase here, Tim. You don't want them to have a system where you have essentially two classes of drivers, so that you have some drivers on a certain hourly rate and the other ones being paid less. A little bit like what's happened over at Qantas, where you have cabin staff doing exactly the same job on different pays and conditions.
No, not just cabin staff. I mean, they've done it in the ground handling, and we only got to look at what's happened there to Liam. I mean, it's completely destroyed, long-term, good, secure work where they've now contracted all that work out.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying, though, don't you? You don't.
Exactly.
You don't want them to erode the sort of nucleus of the entire workforce.
No, of course we don't. I mean, and nor do it's not just us, Liam. It's the Toll workforce don't want to erode their wages and conditions. People want reliable jobs. They want secure employment, and what Toll want to bring forward here is unsecure and unsafe workplaces.
How is this going to affect WA consumers?
If we take action, if our members take action?
Yep.
They have major contracts in fuel, in mining companies, in manufacturing, in retail. Yes, it will affect them. I mean, we don't want to go down this path. No one wants to take industrial action. And Toll employees haven't taken industrial action for 10 to 15 years around negotiations. We've been able to negotiate an outcome at all times. But, it's got to a point now, to a point where the sale of Toll Global Express to Allegro, Toll, they don't even want to guarantee these people will be on the same conditions when they go over to the new company. I mean, it's a complete and utter grubby attack on workers' wages and conditions. That's pretty average, isn't it? Sell the company that people help create and then don't even guarantee them the same wage. No, 100%, mate, 100%, I mean, all people want is reliable jobs and to be paid the same. And when someone works next to them doing the same job, should they not be paid the same money? I mean, we're not a country where we have different wages and conditions, and we know the corporate world want that, but we're not going to accept it. Our members aren't going to accept it, and they will take action. Unfortunately, yes, people will be affected, but what can we do? People can't accept unsecure and unreliable jobs, which will affect not only the workers but their families as well. Yeah, look, I'm not going to disagree with you on the principle, but Tim, you've been around a while. You're a pretty good operator. Let me put something to you. I mean, you're at the table at the moment with this company. Is this just part of your general ambit claim? You're using this as a bit of leverage, the threat. I mean, how realistic is it that it's going to happen? Well, I mean, our members are angry, Liam. I've never seen them this angry for a long time. And I've been around a long time. I've been around the days and you just walk them off the job and teach them a lesson. But, the laws now don't allow that. So what they've said is we'll go through the proper processes. We'll put a ballot out. Our members will vote on it. Toll employees will vote whether they want to take industrial action or not. And if we go on by the meetings we're having with our members at the moment, and I'll be in the Northwest next week talking to Toll members, and, they're angry. They're angry about this. I mean, and so they should be angry where companies want to, destroy their wages and conditions, because, they'll start with new employees and then it will end up being all employees. That's what happens, and they're not going to accept it. In the interest of fairness, I've got to tell you, Tim, we invited Toll, a spokesperson from Toll, to come on the program and talk to
the allegations that you're making, I mean, the claims that you're making, and they didn't want to put anybody up, which won't surprise you too much. They did give us a statement. We told them that we don't do statements. That's for newspapers. We are a radio station and we talk to people. Yeah. But I will, again, go that one step further in the interests of fairness and equity. I'll read the first paragraph out. They say, Toll Group is disappointed by this action and is continuing to engage in discussions with union representatives, that's you, Tim, to reach a fair and reasonable agreement for our employees and the business. Well, it's pretty vanilla, isn't it?
It is very vanilla. Look, Liam, the problem, they're dancing to the tune of the clients. They're dancing to the tune of the big retailers and mining companies and oil and gas companies out there that, want cheaper rates. And they want cheaper rates around having, transport workers paid less, have the transport industry unsafe, and their mums and dads out on the roads put at danger because of the things that they want to do. And we're not going to accept it. Our membership is not going to accept it. And we will take action because, an iconic company like Toll, who we put up as a leading light in the transport industry, who when we sit down with the retailers and the mining companies, we say this is the type of company that we expect you to engage and contract out work to. And we can't accept this happening, and our membership won't. And, we're in it for the fight. Our members are in it for the fight. And, Toll are on notice. There'll be action we'll take to continue to keep their wages and conditions.
All right. Let us know how the vote goes. Tim, thanks for your time this morning.
Thanks, Liam. Thanks for your time, mate. Cheers.
Tim Dawson, the Secretary here in WA of the Transport Workers Union, and what's shaping up as a very interesting industrial fight between about 7,000 truck drivers and the Toll Group. 16 minutes to 11, 133 882 is our talkback number. Our lines are open this morning. G'day, Chris.
Good morning. How are you, Liam?
Good, thank you.
Yeah, look, I'm listening to, I'm an old union person and we've driven for this separate companies now. First of all, I'll start, just stay with me. Japan Post Holdings own Toll. This is a foreign entity. They come in. How many drivers do you think are out there struggling to maintain their trucks, to put food on the table? Now, Tim Dawson, I would say I'm an old union man myself.
Yep.
Go for it. Go for the doctor. Teach this company a lesson. It's a foreign company, a foreign entity. How many truck drivers are having pranks all over the metropolitan area every day, Liam? Are these trucks roadworthy? I don't want to be there trying to say they're not. They're all struggling, but Tim, you need to go through with what you're saying, down the trucks, blockade, do whatever you need. Teach this company a lesson, because what they're doing, the thin edges of the wedge, and a foreign company, which makes me sick, that are coming in, smashing wages, conditions, livelihoods, lives, and also everything else that goes with it. And unless you take them to, the task that you're going and make sure it's legal,
yep,
dot the I's, cross the T's. Thank you, Liam.
Yeah, no, Chris, I'm with you on the promises. I mean, if you make a promise like that, you got to keep it. You got to go through with it, especially when you've got a negotiation going on an open table, if I can put it that way. I mean, if you threaten something, you've got to be prepared to go the full Monty if you want to get anywhere near what you want for your members. I totally agree with you there. I think Tim is pretty serious. I think the whole TWU is pretty serious about this particular issue. I don't agree with you about the foreign company thing. I mean, foreign investment is incredibly valuable, and we've got some fantastic foreign-based companies here in Australia. I mean, the problem is when the company treats the workers in a substandard way in terms of pay and conditions. It doesn't matter where the origin of that company's from. I mean, it's what they end up dishing out. That's the point, isn't it? But thanks very much for your call. 13 minutes to 11. We'll take some more calls in a moment. 133 882 on the morning program.
The morning program with Liam Bartlett on 882 6PR.
10 minutes to 11, almost 17 degrees in the city at the moment. Let's go back to the phones. Hello, Neil.
Good morning, Liam. How are you?
Good, thank you. What's going on?
I was listening intently to your some of your callers talking about Mark McGowan and the Chinese influence that possibly they may have over him. If you go back a few years, remember the 45-storey tower, whatever it was, and the 36-storey tower to go in at Scarborough, purely funded by Chinese money, linked to the Chinese government. It didn't go ahead because the Chinese government decided there was too much money going out of China. I mean, this guy's an absolute clown. And lo and behold, it all gets passed again with an extra tower 15 stories high. It's all Chinese funded. This guy is just, I don't know if you say allegedly he's in their back pocket or something like that. It's just crazy. And to get voted in on people's fear of a disease, people just need to take a look at how they voted for this guy, and it's just wrong. It is wrong. He just needs to go. There's just too much, dare I say the word, corruption going on in his government, and it just needs to stop.
Well,
it's just...
I think maybe mental corruption, Neil, but he's not going anywhere. Not going anywhere, mate. You got him for another 3 years at least. Thanks for calling. Hello, Brian.
Now, what are you doing over there with dictatorship? Now, with the ACL not being able to book a venue. Now, what's happened to free speech?
The Australian...
Now, is he running a dictatorship over there?
Yeah, you think so, do you? What do you mean over there? Where are you, Brian?
Oh, well, actually, I was born in Meekatharra. I didn't know where that is. Lived all my life in Adelaide, and now I'm in Sydney.
Oh, now you're in Sydney. Okay, all right. How you going with the lockdown there in Sydney, Brian?
Yes. Well, she's done a fair job, hasn't she? It's easy. You have to manage anything. It's easy to just lock a place down with one or two cases. But she actually tried to manage the situation.
Well,
not like your Premier.
Well, she was doing a very good job up until the last couple of weeks, but she's been handed a bit of a mixer, the proverbial, hasn't she, in the last couple of weeks. Brian, thanks for your call this morning. Plenty of text messages about the situation with the Perth Theatre Trust again today, and especially those comments from Ben Fordham, our stablemate at 2GB. Kevin says, Liam, the 2GB guy's spot on. McGowan is definitely China's lapdog. The overriding of free speech proves it, and his lecturing the PM to be nicer to China is a disgrace. Thank you, Kevin. Alan says, Liam, Ben Fordham is spot on. McGowan is reading directly from Xi Jinping's handbook. Ban anything he doesn't agree with, a bit like Hong Kong, says Alan. Anna says, where is Madame Dong when you need her? Margot says, thank you to 2GB radio presenter. Finally, we have a voice calling out Mark McGowan to be who he is. Fred says, Liam, I just tried to call Minister Templeman's office to complain about his decision to ban the Australian Christian Lobby and restrict freedom of speech. The receptionist hung up on me without hesitation. It reeked of arrogance and dismissing my freedom to give my opinion to my elected member of Parliament. Sorry to hear about that, Fred. And Dee says, Liam, 2GB is spot on. This truly is madness and censorship of the kind I could never have imagined. McGowan is a real danger and a Chinese lapdog, says Dee. A lot of people very strong on that this morning. 0487 999 882 if you would prefer to text the program. Liz, good morning.
Oh, hi, yeah, Liam. Look, this is not why I'm ringing, but I just want to say that Ben Fordham is absolutely right on that one. What I'm ringing about, yesterday you had a caller, a man who was pretty concerned about the government, the state government's decision to turn around that grain carrier and send it back to Indonesia.
Send it back empty, yeah.
Yeah, empty. Look, I did a bit of investigating because I too, when I heard your show on Tuesday morning, I think it was, as a farmer, I was very, very upset about what they'd done.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, I'll just do a bit of fact-finding, which I did. So I rang the Premier's office and they knew nothing, didn't know anything, shoved me off onto Rita Safioti, the Minister for Ports. Her office knew nothing, didn't know a thing. So they told me to ring the
hotline, the COVID hotline, which I knew was not going to be. Anyway, somebody there said, ring the Port Authority, which I did. After a couple of phone calls there, I did actually get onto somebody who told me that the crew on board the boat had all been tested, and from her knowledge, from what she knew, none of them tested positive. And
not one.
Not one. And that the decision or the call was made to turn the boat around was made by the police commissioner under his the emergency management legislation.
Emergency management, yep.
Yeah, management legislation. So that was his decision to do that. So that's what I actually found out. So I was pretty darn disgusted because that is, that's a kick in the guts to the farmers.
It was, absolutely.
And we are grain producers, so
I are totally with you, Liz. And thanks very much for your calls. Well done on making those other calls too. Good on you for making doing some homework on that and trying to hold people to account. Well done. I think a lot of people will agree with you that action was a total disgrace. I wanted to quickly return this morning to a story that we brought you first up on the program today about a WA family's claims that they have been the subject of, really, I mean, let's cut to the chase, subject of an abuse of power by the WA Public Trustee's Office. Now, the Prodovnik family, the 5 children that have been left as equal beneficiaries in a will from their parents, had essentially 2 properties in the Swan Valley, 2 semi-rural properties, both just over 4 hectares in size, so virtually identical in size. One had a 5-bedroom, 2-storey house on it, the other just an old shack. And for some strange reason, it's turned out that the valuations on the properties don't match up in any way with the way the properties have been sold, and the actions of the public trustee are suspicious, to say the least. Now, the family is claiming that this abuse of power may have cost them as much as $120,000, and we've been trying to get to the bottom of it. While we were broadcasting that story, one of our listeners, Lionel, heard about that and thought he'd contact us because in among the sales process, he was one of the people who lodged an offer for one of those properties. Lionel, good morning.
Good morning.
Lionel, which property did you put an offer in on, can I ask?
We put an offer in for the property that had no house, just the old redundant weatherboard asbestos property, so just the 10 acres with the easement side. Yeah.
Okay. And what was your offer, can I ask?
We put an offer in for $940K.
$940,000.
Yes.
Okay. And let's see. Okay, $940,000. And what did it sell for? Do you know what it sold for?
No. This has been probably the drama with this whole process for us, is that we originally put the offer in on the 31st of May. Had pretty limited correspondence to the 23rd of June. And then, at the end of the day, I wasn't even I felt like I didn't have a seat at the table to even look at my offer. So I decided to put an offer in for both properties.
So, I'm sorry, so you put an offer in for both properties?
In the end, yeah, because while we were getting no correspondence, we were told that the trustee only would prefer a clean sale.
Yeah.
And he wants to sell it to someone that's willing to buy both properties.
To buy both properties. So originally, sorry to sound like I'm going back over old ground here. I just don't want to get this completely right. It's very important. I don't want to accuse anybody of doing the wrong thing if that's not the case. So the original that property that you put an offer in on for $940,000.
Yes.
Would it be a surprise to you to learn that the sale price was $935,000?
Wow. That is a surprise. because I thought our offer was very, very good for that property. And being the easement side, we lose nearly an acre, obviously, to Crown land. That's very surprising to see that it was under what we put in. And we basically how it was structured is we went for the home open.
Yep.
The following Monday, we put an offer in. We got told it would be a 10-day process, and that dragged out until the 23rd of June with no sort of correspondence, no counter offer, no nothing.
Nothing. Incredible when you're talking about that sort of money. So
yes.
Lionel, can I ask, when you made an offer on both properties, what was that offer?
I ended up putting an offer in a bit lower, just so I felt like I couldn't sleep without just putting an offer in.
Yep.
So I just put an offer in for 1.6. I knew it was a lot lower, but at least I knew that I had a crack, I suppose, because prior to then I was getting no correspondence. No one was communicating, nothing.
Okay, well, it's very strange. I mean, the other property...
And within 2 days, I had a rejection of offer. So once I amended it to try and purchase both properties, within 2 days I said no, not successful.
Not successful.
Yeah.
So okay. So that's just astonishing that your original offer of $940 for that property was $5,000 more than it ended up selling for. I mean, that's not... Listen, thanks for the information. That's pretty amazing. Just hold the line there. I'll just go back to Rochelle Prodovnik, we talked to earlier in the program. Rochelle, what do you think of that information?
Liam, I just want to correct the record there. The property actually sold for $940,000, so that's 70 William Street, sold for $940,000. I am a little bit confused and frankly quite horrified to hear this story. We actually did go back to the public trustee and we asked them to negotiate with another buyer who just wanted to buy one lot. So we would have accepted that offer for $940,000. It was not our instruction to sell both properties to one buyer. We were willing to sell them separately. We were not in a hurry. We were willing to wait.
Well, that's pretty extraordinary, because Lionel's saying that his first offer on that property was $940 and he was prepared to go higher.
We actually asked the public trustee to go back to the buyer, whoever that buyer was that offered us $940,000. We asked them to go back and negotiate with that buyer and ask them to go up to $950. If they didn't go up to $950, we would have accepted $940. We just wanted to have those discussions. And in the same week, we were led to believe those discussions were being had. The public trustee's office was negotiating with a buyer we had asked them to reject. Behind our backs. It's just extraordinary.
And yet you're hearing there firsthand from a man who genuinely wanted that property and was told that they wanted a clean offer on both properties and that he wasn't allowed to just put an offer in for one.
Now that is exactly the exact opposite of what we had instructed the public trustee. We had instructed them to go back to that one buyer, if it was this man, to go back to him, and that we were happy to accept his offer. We were happy to accept his offer, and that is on the record. We've got emails accepting that offer and asking the public trustee to go back and negotiate with that one buyer. This is shocking.
Again, forget about the figures for a moment. Again, it's supposed to be that the public trustee is there to act in the interests of the beneficiaries, totally. And yet what you're telling me and what this other information tells us is that there's nowhere near the interests of you and your brothers and sisters.
And again, we keep going back to this, Liam, but who is this buyer that came in who was waiting in the wings right from the beginning? Who are they, and what is their relationship with the public trustee's office? We've asked those questions repeatedly 18 days ago, and we have outlined our case very clearly to the public trustee's office. There is no response here.
There is no reason that they, as John Hammond pointed out, there is no reason that they should not engage with you. And in fact, they're duty-bound almost to do exactly that. So, as I say, we'll continue to ask the office questions. We'll continue to ring the office on your behalf. And I know that, you are trying the same thing. But you can't... In an office of that nature, of that stature, you can't just simply hide away. You can't just say, well, no, we're not going to talk.
Well, I mean, they were contacting us quite frequently, to be honest, Liam. I know that you said on your program that they're overworked, but I can assure you that they were contacting us very frequently. We had no issue getting in contact with them until the sale process.
Mm. Well, again, you know, Lionel tells us that he was willing to go higher than $950 and for that one property. And it's just, it must be galling for you to hear that.
It's so difficult to hear, so difficult to hear. All we wanted was to negotiate with genuine buyers to see if we can get the best price we possibly can. This is our parents' property. You know, they worked their fingers to the bone. They came to this country. They were migrants, Liam. They came to this country with nothing, and everything they did was for us. They worked their fingers to the bones. They wore second-hand clothes. They weren't flash people. They drove second-hand cars. Everything that they invested into their property was for the benefit of their children. You know, and to have our property given away to I don't know who, it's too much. It's too much.
Well, I understand your anger. It's extraordinary that you don't even know who the buyer is. That's just extraordinary. It just can't be let to stand. I mean, as I say again, it's the role of there is no other role. The role of the public trustee is to act in the total interest of the beneficiary. And that's why they take the money out, the fees out from your mum and dad's estate to do the right thing by their kids. So, as I say, Rochelle, thanks again for coming back to us. I just wanted to clarify that because I thought that information from our listener who very kindly rang in and gave us that personal feedback was fascinating. And we'll continue to follow the case. 16 minutes past 11 on the morning program.
Until midday, this is the morning program with Liam Bartlett.
21 minutes past 11. Hello, Colin. How are you this morning?
Good, Liam. Liam, my understanding of the public trustee is that he is the executor of that estate for the beneficiaries, and he has a liability which they could claim under Supreme Court action. They're talking as though they are instructing him, telling him what to do. They've got nothing to do with it. They're the beneficiaries, and public trustee is the executor. So they can't go around and do this, do that, do everything. All they can do is challenge him for not doing the right thing by the beneficiary, which is his sole under. But they're talking as though they're part of the sale process. They're not part of the sale process.
Well, they're trying to get the maximum amount, which is what they should be trying to get on their behalf, shouldn't they?
Yes, I agree with that.
I hear what you're saying. You're quite right. I mean, that's their technical position is they're the executor. Exactly.
Yeah, and the fact that they're saying, we instructed him to do this and he hasn't told us about that, he's got no obligation to do that, but they can challenge it. I know the costs are prohibitive in the Supreme Court, but the fact being is they're talking as though they've got rights. They've got no rights until everything's done.
Oh, well, that you can't just have no rights. I mean, that's just it's ridiculous.
I'm the beneficiary of your estate. Your beneficiaries have got no legal. They've got no right to tell me what to do. If I'm negligent in disposing of your assets, your beneficiaries can tackle me. But until I dispose of it,
but that's
negligent legally.
And Colin, that's exactly, you've hit the nail on the head. That's exactly right. If you're negligent, and that's the problem. That's the issue that this family is trying to grapple with, as have many other families by the look of some of the feedback we have to the program. Proving the negligence or contesting possible negligence at the public trustees means that you have to go to the Supreme Court. Who's got the money to go to the Supreme Court?
Liam, you've been around this sort of thing for a long time, but you understand also clearly that there's always two sides to a story, and the answer's somewhere in between.
Yeah.
But they're telling you their story, and I believe them, and I feel sorry for them, and I understand that.
Totally.
But I've been around a long time to know that there's two sides to the story, and when you find out what the net amount for the both properties, then you can sit back and analyse it. But until then, it's all just one-sided, and they've got no legal right at the moment until the estate.
Yeah, well, we know what the net amount is, and the net amount is $120,000 under what they were told the valuation was. And in a market like this, that's very surprising. You would think, if anything, it would be on the other side of the equation. But again, you know, we've invited the public trustee onto the program, and they have been trying to talk to them like, you know, responsible adults. And the fact that the public trustee have shut down all communications also makes me very suspicious with the family I'm talking about. And they're quite entitled not to talk to journalists like me. Frank, good morning.
Good morning. I might be wrong, but I reckon there's a developer involved in this situation that you're talking about.
Well, who knows? Who would know, Frank? But we'd love to get to the truth. That's the whole point. Thanks for calling. Excuse me. 133 882. Our talkback line is open on the morning program. 23 minutes past 11. And we're joined by the Federal Health Minister, Greg Hunt, on the program this morning. Minister, good morning to you.
And good morning to you.
Minister, we've got quite a situation around Australia at the moment, haven't we? What have we got at the moment? I'm just looking at these new figures on the leaderboard, the COVID leaderboard, if I can put it that way.
Let me take you through it.
I'll just give it three new cases in Queensland, 2 new cases in Victoria, 65 new cases in New South Wales. How do you reckon we're going?
Look, it's a challenge. New South Wales, we're seeing a flattening of the curve in many ways. We'll have good days and bad days, but their control of the community cases is strengthening, and so a lot of the cases that we're seeing in the order of 2/3 in isolation already, which I think is very positive. Each case is a potential risk for the individual, so we're deeply focused on that.
Yeah.
But more generally, when we saw 100 cases in Victoria a year ago, that grew to 700 cases. In New South Wales, at this point in time, they have stabilised and they are bringing them down. There's a lot more to do. But I've got to say that their tracing is world-class, absolutely global gold standard, and the work that's being done by the community, difficult, challenging, testing, staying at home, all of these things are incredibly important. And yesterday we had a record day in terms of primary care or GP vaccinations, and 162,000 vaccinations across the nation, and the highest first 3 days of a week so far, with over 481,000 vaccinations. So Australians are stepping forward. We're now at 74% of the over 70s. The most vulnerable group is the most protected group, and 66% of the over 60s and 58% of the over 50s. So very significant numbers. I want to thank everybody in WA for coming forward to be vaccinated, and people around the country.
Do we have any supply issues at the moment with vaccines?
Well, in the sense that we have AstraZeneca, we have very, very large numbers, and we're able to meet all of the demand. Pfizer, those numbers are growing to approximately 1 million a week arriving in the country as of next week. The whole world has been working on the basis of a constrained supply with the mRNA vaccines.
You're a bad cop,
our numbers are...
I hope you
haven't got it. Just a one-off. It's all right. I was tested not that long ago. But the whole world has been working within the available supply, and this was always going to be a process over the course of the year. What we've seen is that, for example, in May there were 2.1 million doses administered. In June, 3.44 million doses, and already this month 1.8 million across the first 14 days. But those numbers are growing, and people are stepping forward.
Do you think there is anyone, as we speak today, any point at any place in Australia, do you think there is anyone who wants a jab but can't get it?
Well, we know that for those people who are between 40 and 60, they have to book and work through that. And so we are saying that in that age group, right now that's a booking process. Some people are getting them more quickly than others. For the over 60s, there really shouldn't be any delay at all. We're seeing significant numbers of people come forward, but there are very strong, clear supplies of AstraZeneca for the over 60s, and there is a fixed supply of the Pfizer, but that is growing and expanding, and the GP program started last week, and that's already playing itself out with additional supplies in GPs and a record number of vaccinations through GPs in the last 24 hours as an example.
Well, why aren't we having more pharmacies, for example? Why don't we just let the pharmacies do exactly the same as what they do with the flu jab? Explain why we don't do that, because we look at our overseas competitors, if I can put it that way, people like America who have had great success with numbers. I mean, you can get in your local Walmart and get a jab.
Sure. America's had over 625,000 lives lost.
Yeah. Yeah, but
I'm always very cautious when people compare us with America.
Yeah,
and I say,
so what? In vaccine?
We've had 912 lives. So look,
I'm talking about making sure people don't die. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes, correct. So in terms of the AstraZeneca, there is a very high volume of doses available because we made it onshore. We were able to move heaven and earth to get that done. In terms of the mRNA or these new vaccines, those are being brought in and we are increasing the supply. The GP has been the base. Where we have towns that don't have GPs then we're able to use the pharmacy, and as we have the additional supplies of the mRNA, we'll be expanding those out to not just state clinics, but also the general practices and also the pharmacies as we have the supply to do that.
So it's a supply chain issue, Minister. I mean, if I can just paraphrase you there, what I'm hearing is if we had extra supplies, for example, of the Pfizer, if there was no question about the limits, then you wouldn't mind if all the pharmacies did it in exactly the same way as the flu jab.
Well, we have planned precisely to have large volumes of pharmacists on as we move to up to 2 million a week of Pfizer and Moderna. So those are the two mRNA vaccines, and that's something that we've said is expected in September, October. We already have pharmacies operating in rural areas around the country, but as we have that additional volume, then that will be shared more broadly.
What
moved,
figure?
For example, from 100,000 doses of Pfizer, which is going to GPs this week, to expanding that to 250,000 next week. So we're continuously expanding that as the international supply is available.
What sort of figure are you anticipating, or has there been any numbers crunched through your office, say by the end of the year, by the end of, by Christmas time? Do you think what sort of percentage of Australians will be fully vaccinated?
Well, our goal is very clear and very simple, and that is to give every eligible Australian access to the vaccine this year. And we want as many people as possible to have the confidence to step forward to take it up. We've been a great vaccination nation, so we're not putting a figure on that other than that we want to make sure that everybody has access to the vaccine this year. And with the numbers we've been doing per week and per month over the course of June and July, that's achievable, but we know that those numbers will increase significantly beginning next week when we get the first of the approximately million dose supplies arrive, and that will then be played out and distributed, and that will continue to grow, and that will mean that more and more people have access.
That will be a bit of a game changer, won't it? Do you think the criticism of the federal government has been a bit unfair in that sense?
Look, our job was to make sure that we had as many irons in the fire. The world had never had a coronavirus vaccine, so we've done six contracts. 5 of them have come through. The University of Queensland was a brilliant vaccine, but it carried a marker